The Pacific Ocean, vast, treacherous, and merciless. A place where many have met their fate, swallowed whole by its unforgiving depths. But one man, lost at sea for 47 days, staring into the eyes of death, refused to be consumed. This is the story of survival unlike any other. The story of Louis Zamperini. Before Louis Zamperini became a war hero, he was destined for something else entirely. Born in 1917 to Italian immigrants, Louis had always been a fighter, fighting against prejudice, poverty, and his own wild nature. Growing up in Torrance, California, he faced bullies, racism, and a constant need to prove himself. As a young boy, Louis was notorious for his rebellious nature. He was often in trouble, stealing, fighting, and causing havoc, much to his family's despair. That defiance against the world was channeled into something far more remarkable: track and field. Louis had discovered his true gift: speed. It wasn't long before he was setting records in high school, catching the attention of scouts. He was a natural. By the age of 19, Zamperini was representing the United States in the 1936 Berlin Olympics, running the 5,000 meters. He didn't win gold, but his final lap was legendary. He caught the world's attention by running it in just 56 seconds. But his Olympic dreams would be cut short by a far greater conflict: World War II. With the world at war, Louis traded his running shoes for a military uniform. He joined the U.S. Army Air Corps and became a bombardier aboard the B-24 Liberator, a bomber aircraft nicknamed the Green Hornet. He flew perilous missions over the Pacific, his fate tied to the violent skies. On May 27, 1943, everything changed. Louis's plane was sent on a rescue mission, searching for a missing crew. But the Green Hornet was notorious for being a broken-down aircraft, riddled with mechanical issues. High above the endless stretch of ocean, disaster struck. The engines failed. The plane plummeted into the water, shattering on impact. Of the 11 crew members aboard, only 3 survived the crash: Louis Zamperini, Phil Phillips, and Mac McNamara. They crawled into 2 life rafts, surrounded by nothing but the unforgiving Pacific. It was the beginning of a nightmare that would test their minds, bodies, and spirits like never before. 47 days. 47 excruciating days. With no fresh water and no food, the 3 men faced death daily. The ocean is beautiful, but for those adrift on it, it's a silent killer. The sun burned them by day. The cold chilled them by night. They had no escape from the elements, no shelter from the brutal heat or the chilling rainstorms that swept over them. Sharks circled their fragile rafts, day and night, waiting. Louis and the others would slap the water, scream, and punch at the beasts to keep them at bay. But the sharks weren't the only predators they faced. Japanese planes flew overhead on multiple occasions. Each time they were invisible to the airmen, a speck on the vast ocean, just below the surface of hope. But one day, a bomber spotted them, and instead of help, it rained bullets down upon them. Miraculously, Louis survived again, dodging both the bullets and the jaws of the sharks below. Yet even in the face of all this, it wasn't the external threats that would break them. It was despair. Mac, unable to cope with the horror and hopelessness, fell into a deep depression, and soon after, died. His body was committed to the ocean, leaving Louis and Phil alone. But Louis wasn't just a survivor of the ocean. After 47 days adrift, they were finally rescued by the Japanese Navy. For Louis, the nightmare was only beginning. Taken as prisoners of war, they were transported to Japanese POW camps, where cruelty was the daily ration. Louis was first taken to Kwajalein, a place known as Execution Island, where most prisoners never left alive. Yet again, Louis defied the odds and survived, but worse awaited him in the camps of mainland Japan. In the camps, the prisoners were starved, beaten, and forced into hard labor. There was a particular tormentor, Mutsuhiro Watanabe, known as the Bird. Watanabe took a personal interest in breaking Louis. Every day, he subjected him to brutal beatings, hoping to crush the Olympian spirit. Watanabe was relentless, but Louis was unbreakable. Even when forced to hold a wooden beam above his head for hours as punishment, even when he was starving and barely able to stand, Louis never surrendered. His defiance became a symbol of strength, not only to himself, but to the other prisoners. Years of captivity and torture dragged on. The war raged outside, but inside the camp, time seemed to stand still. For over 2 years, Louis endured this living hell. But then, in August 1945, the war ended. Japan surrendered, and the camps were liberated. Louis Zamperini, battered but alive, was free at last. But freedom wasn't the end of Louis's struggles. He returned to the U.S. a changed man. Plagued by nightmares of the Bird, Louis spiraled into alcoholism and rage. The war had taken more from him than just his youth. It had stolen his peace. It was only through faith that Louis found his salvation. After attending a Billy Graham crusade, Louis discovered the power of forgiveness. In a moment that would define his legacy, Louis forgave his captors. He even sought out the Bird after the war, offering him forgiveness, though Watanabe refused to meet him. Louis's story was no longer just about survival. It was about redemption. When faced with the harshest trials, when pushed to the very brink, it is not always strength that keeps us going. It is hope. A hope that tomorrow might bring something better. Louis found his way through the darkness, and in doing so, became a beacon of resilience for us all. For more tales of the unexplained and the extraordinary, subscribe and turn on notifications. Until next time, keep surviving.